There are 12 blocks in the Birth Flowers Block of the Month series, one pattern for each month, plus a 13th pattern for a border. I'm Kathy Wiley, and in this tutorial, we will talk about the Birth Flowers border pattern, what it includes, and how to use it to add a border to one block or multiple blocks. We will also talk about how to use the pattern to make a quilted frame, where birth flower blocks can be switched in and out from month to month, like a perpetual calendar. The Birth Flowers border pattern is divided into 4 units: a corner unit, a border unit, a sashing unit, and a cornerstone unit. These units can be combined to make a border for one block or multiple blocks. To make a border for one block, you would use 4 corner units. The completed quilt will measure 27.5 inches by 27.5 inches. To make a border for 2 blocks, join the blocks together with 1 sashing unit. Then use 4 corner units and 2 border units. The completed quilt will measure 27.5 inches by 46.5 inches. To make a border for 3 blocks, join the blocks together with 2 sashing units. Then use 4 corner units and 4 border units. The completed quilt will measure 27.5 inches by 65.5 inches. To make a border for 4 blocks, join the blocks together with 4 sashing units and 1 cornerstone unit. Use 4 corner units and 4 border units. The completed quilt will measure 46.5 inches by 46.5 inches. To make a border for 6 blocks, join the blocks together with 7 sashing units and 2 cornerstone units. Use 4 corner units and 6 border units. The completed quilt will measure 46.5 inches by 65.5 inches. To make a border for 8 blocks, join the blocks together with 10 sashing units and 3 cornerstone units. Use 4 corner units and 8 border units. The completed quilt will measure 46.5 inches by 84.5 inches. To make a border for 9 blocks, join the blocks together with 12 sashing units and 4 cornerstone units. Use 4 corner units and 8 border units. The completed quilt will measure 65.5 inches by 65.5 inches. To make a border for all 12 blocks, join the blocks together with 17 sashing units and 6 cornerstone units. Use 4 corner units and 10 border units. The completed quilt will measure 65.5 inches by 84.5 inches. The background fabric for the borders will be cut according to how many blocks are being used. The instruction booklet in the border pattern includes a border options chart, which lists the quantity of each unit that is required, along with a cutting chart for the background fabric. So for 4 blocks, for example, you would need 4 corner units, 4 border units, 4 sashing units, and 1 cornerstone unit. You would need to cut 4 strips at 6.25 inches by 49 inches for the borders, 4 strips at 3.5 inches by 16.5 inches for the sashing, and 1 3.5 inch square for the cornerstone. Each border would contain half a corner unit, a border unit, and the other half of a corner unit. Onto each background fabric border strip, you would trace half a corner unit from the miter seam to the unit connecting line, trace a border unit, and trace the other half of the corner unit from the unit connecting line to the miter seam. To see through the background fabric for tracing, use a light box, a bright window, or a light under a glass top table. For more information about marking fabric, please visit the Preparing for Applique tutorial. Applique each patch in numerical order onto the background fabric. Patch 12 will grow depending on how many units you are joining together. Patches 15, 16, and 17 cross over the miter seam, so they will need to be added after the border has been sewn onto the quilt top and the corners have been mitered. The birth flowers border pattern can also be used to make a quilted frame. The frame is a single block border with no block in the middle. Instead, a pocket is sewn on the back so that individual birth flower blocks can be inserted and removed from one month to the next, like a perpetual calendar. Here's how. Quilt and finish each birth flower block to measure 17 inches by 17 inches. Trace half a corner unit from one miter seam to the unit connecting line, and then trace the other half of the corner unit from the unit connecting line to the other miter seam. Make 4. Applique each patch in numerical order onto the background fabric. Miter the appliqued border corner seams to create an open frame. Then applique patches 15, 16, and 17 onto the corners. Alternatively, the 4 corner units could be appliqued onto a 30-inch square of background fabric. Mark the inside edge of the frame. Layer the frame with a 32-inch square of batting and sew together on the marked line. Cut away the batting from inside the frame, close to the stitching. Layer the quilt top and batting with a 32-inch square of backing fabric, right sides together. With the batting on top, sew together along the same sewing line, following the previous stitches. Cut away the fabric inside the frame, grading the seam allowance to reduce bulk by cutting the backing fabric with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and the quilt top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Clip the seam allowance around the optional curved corner. Turn the quilt right side out through the opening and press. Baste the layers together and quilt as desired. The opening should measure 16 inches by 16 inches. For the pocket, take an 18 1/4 inch square of fabric and cut off the corners diagonally 1.5 inches from the outside edge. Turn all the edges under with a double fold 1/4 inch hem. Center the prepared pocket over the opening on the backing side of the quilted frame and pin in place. Hand stitch the pocket to the quilt, taking care not to let the stitches pull through to the front of the quilt and leaving the corners open. Each 17-inch birth flower quilt is inserted into the frame from the front and pulled taut through the open corners on the back. You have lots of options with the birth flowers border pattern. Frame a single block or make a border for multiple blocks. Don't forget to share your progress with our Birth Flowers Block of the Month Facebook group or on Instagram with #BirthFlowerBlock. And check back to the website at kathykyley.com/birthflowers for more tips and tutorials.